we need to share hosting duties or whatever needs to happen there?
See if that worked, hopefully.
Let's see if I can share my screen. Share screen. I'll just see if I can share the PowerPoint presentation. Did something just come up?
Yes.
That looks like PowerPoint?
There we go.
Does it say how to stand out, connect, and grow?
That's it.
Wow. So our that's 2 technological challenges. We got on the Zoom call and got everybody here okay, and we've done our first screen share. So that's great. Okay, I'm just going to come back to me then. Are we all clear then, Janice?
We are. Thanks, Kevin. We'll just follow your lead as we go. So welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the kind words. Thank you to you for investing some time today. I hope that that what we'll share here over the next little bit together is not only helpful, but hopefully a little bit of fun as well, and helping you to stand out as the unique individuals and businesses that you are, to connect on a deeper emotional level, so that we're not just looking to run on a treadmill of transactions, but how do we, in standing out, build kind of a deeper emotional connection and magnetic relationship, how to attract those people that we feel like we're uniquely equipped to serve, and grow our businesses and ourselves, and not get caught in the trap of worrying about trying to get our message and ourselves out to everyone in sort of the 20th century advertising paradigm. But how do we connect with and grow with the right amount of people? And I'm going to do my best to share some of the things that I've learned along the way, and from other people like you in small to mid-sized business, and doing sessions like this around the province over the last couple of years. The first thing that I'd like to do is to ask you to use your imagination. Today of all days when we got a dump of snow, wouldn't it be nice to get away? Just imagine. There's a technical challenge. Would you believe that I had Hawaiian music tuned or queued up, and then it ended up being AC/DC? So imagine you're at an AC/DC concert. But now we're going to bring your nerves down a little bit. Wouldn't it be nice to get away? That's a little bit more relaxing. Imagine that you are away from everything just for a bit. Just a couple of deep breaths. No snowstorms. No COVID news, no daily updates on what's going on with the politics to the country to the south of us. No worries about the endless notifications coming in on our cell phones or snow to shovel. Just a chance to relax. And finally, a little bit of peace and quiet. Maybe you're enjoying your favorite book, sipping on your favorite drink, and the waves are rolling in. And in one of those waves comes a bottle with a piece of paper in it, like a message in a bottle, and you think, how romantic. I wonder if that message is for me. I wonder if somebody threw that off a ship somewhere, and I was universally destined to receive that message. So it rolls in, and you get up out of your chair, and you take the message out of the bottle, and you eagerly open it up to see what it says, and it says, hurry, rush, act now, for a limited time. And that's actually what the message says. That can't really be for me. That must have washed up on the wrong beach. I don't want to hurry. I want to relax. The AC/DC felt like hurrying. That's what I was listening to, and I was trying to get my energy up before reaching you. No, I want to relax. So back into the relaxation. A couple more waves roll in, and another bottle rolls up. I think, wow, that last message must have been for someone else, but a message in a bottle, that's kind of a romantic notion. So I'm going to go and pick that up. You take the message out of the second bottle, you have a look at it. It's got to be more relatable for me here getting away on vacation, right? And it says, don't miss out. You don't want to miss this. And at that point, you think, you know what? The only thing that I really feel like I'm missing out on is more time and money and peace and quiet for myself. Those are the messages that I tried to get away from. Now, if another bottle with another message rolls in, how likely are you going to be to get up and take that message out and read it again? I'm not going to. I'm going to stay in my chair. My point in this exercise is, in the world of advertising now, thinking it through from the perspective of the people that we're trying to reach, there is no longer anywhere to hide. No matter where we are, those messages can get to us. And we, as small business owners and managers and people who are looking to communicate about what we do, sometimes are guilty by association, because that's the kind of language that so many of us get bombarded with. Hurry, rush, act now, for a limited time, make sure to, don't miss out, you don't want to miss. It's what I call marketing speak. It sounds like marketing, but it's all about the advertisers and really kind of just represents sort of empty nonsense. Advertising cliches, I call them. My point is that if the message doesn't connect, if it's not relatable, if it's not engaging or interesting to the people who are on the other end of it, then the delivery method doesn't matter, because we're just making more noise. Message matters most. And it's a mindset shift in terms of understanding that we don't communicate with each other as human beings the way that we advertise at each other. So that message, whether it comes in a bottle or whether it's in the long lineup of stuff that a lot of people, as salespeople, ads are trying to sell us about the delivery method, whether it's pay-per-click or Google AdWords, YouTube pre-roll ads, Instagram, Facebook, radio, partnership promotions, sponsoring the dance squad or the hockey team or what's on your website or your business card. Those are all delivery methods. What's the message inside of that? And are we communicating in a way that both creates that emotional connection, that sort of magnetic identity that we want to draw people to us, and in a way that's relatable to them? In other words, why would somebody else care? Why would they pull that message out of the bottle? And when they do, is it just going to sound and look like everybody else's? Or are we going to stand out and distinguish ourselves in the manner that we really deserve? Because you've got to be a courageous individual, as you already know, to start and run your own business. You deserve to have the way that it's communicated representative of that, and attracting to you the kinds of people that you feel that you're mostly equipped to serve. So how do we do that? How do we stand out as the unique business people that we are, connect more deeply with the people that we feel that we're uniquely equipped to serve, and grow our businesses and ourselves, but at a sustainable pace? I used to sell radio advertising, and radio, it was all on numbers. It was all on who had the biggest audience. And it used to be where in a market like Southwestern Ontario, you had a few radio stations, a newspaper or two, and the TV, and you would just hope to get your business to the point where you could maybe buy some advertising on one of those, and then take advantage of terms like top of mind awareness. Well, these days in the 21st century, there's good news and bad news, and there's both the same news for us as business owners and managers, is that there's never been more choice in terms of how to communicate about what we do and connect with people. But that also comes with the price of helping us or making us feel overwhelmed. A lot of us don't know where to start. So we either get paralyzed into inaction, or we take on too much without having a strategy about what to do really, really well. And it's not so much about top of mind awareness anymore as it is about connection. Because I don't know about you, but I'm well aware of a lot of businesses that I don't particularly care about and wish would stop bothering me with don't miss out and hurry up messages, even if I'm on the beach. So why I've put together a presentation like this, some of the things I hear from people consistently in small businesses, that they do feel overwhelmed with the countless choices of how to communicate about what they do. They feel really unsure of what to say when they get to those channels, how often to say and share it. They don't necessarily feel clear on having an idea of what sort of their unique brand and magnetic identity is. And we'll unpack that idea of brand as well, because I find it frustrates a lot of people. They've got no real means of effectively measuring the return on investment in their time or their money. And one of the things I find I get asked about the most is that people tend to think that it's going to take them a lot more time and money than it really will to do an effective job with this. Now, before we dive in a little bit further, I put into the chat a link for a little workbook. Just making notes on anything that you think is relevant with a piece of paper will do just as well. But if you wanted to play along at home and sort of fill in the blanks, I put this as a PDF into the chat. That's just a link to this PDF on my website that you can download and print it either now or later if you like. I will also email out as we get over to some hit lists of a few tips in just a little bit. I'm happy to email that stuff out as well so that you don't feel like you've got to take dictation on everything that I'm saying or the things that maybe resonate most with you. So diving into it, the first thing is maybe understanding what I mean by a magnetic identity. And what are the three keys to that? Something that where we are connecting with people in a deeper way, that we're cutting through the clutter, that people start to feel like drawn to us, the people that we're really trying to reach, that they don't even necessarily know why, but they start to care about us more deeply. There's more of an emotional connection. There's a kind of quality where they go, there's something a little different about them than everybody else. How do we do that? So the first of the three keys with that is understanding. And I would say understanding what a brand is. And an effective brand, I feel that's where the magnetic identity part comes in. But brand is a word that I've found I hear causes a lot of angst, especially with people in small to mid-sized business. I mean, is a brand a logo? Is it your name? Is it the sign on your storefront? Is it your slogan? Is it something that you can buy? There's a lot of people spend a lot of time and money agonizing over their name or the way their logo looks or any of those kinds of things. And that's all well and fine. We should invest as much as we feel we can in those things to satisfy ourselves that they're accurate representations that we feel good about of what we do. But what does a brand really mean? The best description I've ever heard is from a book called Brain Tattoos by an author named Karen Post, where she said a brand is a story embedded in the mind of the market. We can just shorten that down and make it shorter in more human speak. A brand is a story. It's context. If we fall into the trap of thinking, well, I've just got to get that logo just right, or I have to come up with just that right slogan. So that's once I get that right, then it's going to attract everybody else to me. Well, those things might be pieces to it, but really it's the story. Without any story, without any context, then what's going to happen when people hear or see our name is one of two things. They'll either just ignore us because there's no context or story or framework built up, or they'll just make it up. And in a case like that, probably will lump us into whatever category they think we're in. And that's where some of those advertising cliches I started with can really jump up and bite us, because almost all industries, if we had more time, I could give you some examples that as soon as you saw them, you'd think, yeah, that's right. They have this kind of industry jargon in a way that they talk, but that other people don't necessarily. So how do we stand out? How do we build the story in the context? First of all, just to give a little bit more meat to that, to the idea that it's a story, I'll share this thing called the outer space test. I'm going to ask you to suspend disbelief with me here for a second, just like we did with the beach where we started with AC/DC music. Okay, so suppose that you come in from outer space, or somebody does. The point is that, suspending disbelief, you can speak perfect English for some reason, but you have no context of what's going on at all here on Earth. Logos and businesses and things like that, they don't really mean much to you. So you come in, you walk off your spaceship, and I come and greet you, and I say, welcome to Earth. I'd like to conduct this little test. These three images that are on the screen all represent different businesses. They're what we call logos. One of them represents a technology company, computers and technology. One of them sells cars. And one of them sells food, sort of, depending on what you consider to be good food. Which one do you think is which? Now, again, remember, you've rocketed in from outer space. You don't have any context. You don't have any story on what's what. Now, I don't know about you, but I'll put myself on the spot. I would look at it and I would go, well, I might be from outer space, but I know what an apple is. So that first one's got to be the food company, because Apple is food. The second one, I don't know. It looks kind of chrome-like, metallic, and advanced, sort of like the spaceship I rode in on. But I'm going to come back to that. McDonald's. When I look around, I see that the stores where you humans sell what you call cars, a lot of them seem to have names on them that seem kind of like McDonald's. I see Disbro Chevrolet over in St. Thomas. I see Finch Hyundai, Cullen Chevrolet, Downey Nissan, McMaster Chevrolet. So I'm going to guess that that's the car one, McDonald's Motors. Because that Tesla one, that looks metallic and sleek and technological and computers. Plus, if I go to the dictionary, if I cheat like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and instead of phoning a friend, I look in the dictionary and I look up that word Tesla, it says a unit of magnetic flux density. Or the second criteria is somebody named Nikola Tesla, who was a physicist, engineer, and inventor. So that's my guess. I guess the Apple is the food company, that Tesla is the computer and technology company, and McDonald's Motors is selling the cars. How did I do? Now, you may or may not have guessed the same as me, but who would think, if you didn't have any context at all, that Apple logo would represent a computer or technology company? Without any story or context, what would you think that the Twitter logo represented? A bird watching group or something like that? Or Amazon? What would give you any indication at all that it's an online retailer if you had no story and no context to lean on? I don't know about you, but I would think that it was maybe like a Brazilian rainforest tour company. You'd just be guessing. You'd be making these things up. But I see it all the time with presenters and speakers who position these logos and brands in front of small business people, and it can intimidate us. Well, we've got to get the logo just right or the name just right. Well, you can call yourself whatever you want, but what's the story that's built up that people immediately have pop to heart and mind when they hear our name, when they see our name, when they interact with our business in any fashion? So that's the first key, is really understanding what's the brand. The brand is the story that comes to mind and the context. No story, no brand. I'm just going to either make it up or I'm going to assume, and I'm going to lump that business in with everybody else. So then how do we manage to make sure that the story that comes up, those emotions, those feelings for other people match what we intend, what we know makes us unique, why we got into business in the first place, and why we got into the kind of business that we did and do it in the way that we do? So now that's getting into our second key. The first one is understanding what a brand is. It's a story. It's context. The second is discovery of what our unique brand story and strategy is. And I find that this is something that we discover rather than just sitting down and deciding. And this is the area we're going to get to, that I'm happy to open things up and ask if anybody's got some ideas that they want to chime in, or we can collaborate a little bit back and forth if you like. So if you're following along with the workbook, here's one question that I think is really worth thinking about. Beyond even your industry category, think about and ask yourself, what do you stand for? What does your business stand for? But I'm going to rig the game. I don't want you to say price. I don't want you to say quality, and I don't want you to say service. And the reason why is because just about every advertiser says they have the best of those things. We offer the best prices, the highest quality, and the best service. All of those things may be true, but when you peel all that away, why did you get into business in the first place? And the kind of business that you got into and the way that you do it. What do you stand for? You don't necessarily have to shout that out, or you can put some of those things into the chat, or you can unmute your mic and interrupt me, or just even think about it and jot some of those things down as you go forward. Here's another valuable exercise in the discovery of your unique story, the one that you want to tell and you want to build, is what words describe how you would like your brand, your business to feel? Or I'll put that another way. How would you like other people to feel when they think of you, when they hear about you, when they interact with you? What words describe that feeling? Anybody have any that they would offer forward? I'll share a few from a session like this that I did last week with some people similar to you who are business owners and managers. The words they offered were relief, sophisticated, relaxed, real, magical was one. Catherine, is that you with your mic off?
Yes.
Did you have a word or two?
Safety.
Safety is a terrific word. Or safe. Confident, I see in the chat. Thank you, Lisa. Comfortable is one of mine. Relaxed.
Heard.
Heard is terrific. Heard is in hearing as opposed to a group of animals.
Correct.
I'm guessing. Remember what I said about when we don't know, we just make it up. Okay, so even with these, we go back to where we started, and I'm moving quickly, I appreciate it, and I'm poking some fun, but if you force yourself to pay attention, you'll notice a lot of what I call the advertising cliches. Don't miss out. Hurry, rush, act now, make sure to, for a limited time. Check it out. That's one of my favorites. And I don't even really offer those forward to be critical, because my experience has been, and what I see from so many others, is that it's difficult. It's tough. It is overwhelming. Running our own life on its own is overwhelming, let alone being responsible for running our own business. So a lot of times the communication gets put in the what I call the just get it done pile. And then when we go to make a social post or put some sort of a message together, it's a little bit more reactionary than proactive. So when we hear phrases like that, don't miss out, check it out, and it's just call to action, we're asking for something, versus feel how different this feels, that we intend for the people that interact with us to feel safe, to feel confident, to feel heard. Those are powerful ideas. Happy, motivated, and empowered. Karen, thanks for that. Fun is a terrific one. Confident, again, is what Lisa had mentioned. Does anybody else have any other ones that you want to chime in before we keep moving? This is a really valuable, I have found it to be a really valuable exercise. And I have sheets like this down for my own business, and I go back to on a regular basis because I forget, because I get overwhelmed too. And I have to remind myself, well, what is it that we're doing here? And to just kind of recalibrate. But I would encourage you to just write down whatever comes to mind. It isn't a matter of getting it right or getting it wrong, but just of discovery. And that's the step that we're on right now of our own unique sort of magnetic identity, brand, story, and strategy. Here's one other step that's on the worksheet, and this is a tough one. If you had to represent your unique brand in one word, what would it be? And please don't use price, quality, or service. Or if the whole thing is on service, meaning something beyond self, like contribution and community, that's a little different, but just the cliche that I mentioned earlier. If it could be just one word, what would it be? And it might even be one of the ones that we've already mentioned. The reason why I think that's a powerful exercise is that you can almost kind of hang that up there like a North Star that you're following even when the ship gets blown sideways sometimes. The one that I've used for myself and No Schedule Man, and I don't know if you can see some of the logos here behind me, but this one is it's a compass. And so freedom is the word that I've used, that when I get to be on stage or in a room with people, I'm hoping that I can communicate a little bit through that and some of the other things that I do. Janice mentioned the podcast and whatnot, of a sense of freedom to be yourself, to do things your own way, to stand behind your own values, to just be free, to live and work happy. I'm hoping that as time goes on, I can have a little bit of an effect so that people will say, well, whatever that guy's doing, I want to feel the same way that he does about what he, whatever it is that he's got. I want a little, some of that in my business, just in terms of a feeling. I don't know if it's the the best word or not. But so what do you stand for? So just looking into the values and diving a little bit deeper into why you got into business in the first place and the kind of business that you're in, and who you uniquely are. What are some of the words that describe the way that you would like for people to feel about you? So that's emotion has a big magnetic quality to it. And if you had to represent your business and your brand and that feeling and those values with just one word, even for the next amount of time, what would it be? Maybe think about some of that stuff. So the first key here, again, was understanding. What is a brand? Story. It's context. So the second is discovery. Well, what is our unique brand story and strategy? Well, I just almost stepped over a whole section of it. Wanted to talk about the look of some of this. So we've talked about some words, but what about the look? So related to your business and your communication, what colors best represent how you want your business to feel or how you want people to feel about you? I'll go over the list of the ideas that I have here, and then we'll just come back and unpack each of them if you like. So the first one is color. I'll come back to that. The second is what related images and objects represent your brand story? Those feelings, those values, the things that you want people to feel and think, feel emotionally connected to. Images and objects, and they don't necessarily have to be part of your business. Say if you're running a bookkeeping company, they don't have to be numbers and calculators and computers and pens, pencils, notepads, things like that. It could be something completely different that represents what we've already talked about, the feeling place. And I'll give you a couple of examples. And as a matter of fact, I already gave you one. We'll come back to it. So colors, related images and objects, and fonts. How consistent, like the typefaces that we have access to, hundreds of thousands of them anymore. How consistent are we with what we use when we're making up social posts on our website, on our business cards, our stand-up banners, our brochures, anything where we're communicating our message? So let's go back over this list. Colors. I'm wondering who might have looked into the psychology of color when you were deciding what to use to represent your business, and how much you know about how powerful color can be, not just to inspire different feelings with people, but to represent these ideas that we've talked about so far. And how consistent is it? Because we're very attention deficit as a society anymore, which means that for us as business owners and managers, we've got to make it as simple as we possibly can for people to find us and to know instantly, oh, that's Janice, that's Richard, that's Karen and their company. So our websites and the color that we use for that, are we seeing the same colors and imagery and the fonts? And how is it consistent when I see somebody's Facebook page header, profile picture, or Instagram, or on the business card? How consistent do they look? And how well do those colors represent the feeling that we're looking to communicate? I'd highly encourage you to do a Google search for the psychology of color. There are some really great infographics on it that illustrate some of the companies and the colors that they use and why they use them. And it's something that I've paid a lot of attention to. I'm wondering if anybody has a story that they want to interject about what's sort of primary for their business and why they chose that way. Anyone?
I can go.
Sure, Kathy.
Catherine. I have a company called Braca Shirts, and it is for women who have post-surgical operative drains at post-mastectomy. And I chose dark blue and gold because my shirts are dark blue, so that when they wear these shirts and they have any seeping drainage, people don't see the drainage. And the shirts have big pockets, and I wanted people to be confident, and I chose the gold with it because I wanted that richness in that. I wanted to emphasize safety and confidence, but at the same time, just a good feeling, because I think blue and gold is a nice combination together.
Do you know what else gold brings up to me, Catherine, there's a timelessness, a quality,
That too.
you know, there's gold is a color that that connotates a lot of really positive things. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, Janice, put into the chat about green, yellow, vibrant colors. Our colors are all represented in the flowers that we grow. That's terrific. Thank you for sharing that, Janice. As you can see from the space behind me, I use a lot of black and white. But there's a reason for that. And I, like Catherine, go to blue and sometimes purple. I don't know how washed out I am, but it's a light purple shirt that I'm wearing. I don't use a lot of yellows and reds. To me, red means stop or it means angry. I'm learning to reframe that a little bit because for some people, like my mom, for instance, red is absolutely her favorite color. It's also associated with the root chakra, which if you're into that stuff, you'll know deals with grounding and security and a sense of safety and a sense of self. But it can also, you know, be used to excite people. We do some training and conversations on color in my online community, which I'll share a little bit more about with you before we wrap up here today. But think about that. Have some fun with it as well. Maybe if you're just kind of rebooting and you're just thinking about it and looking at what you're using, of how much thought goes into not just representing who you are, but take it another step further. I would encourage you to think about the feelings that you're looking to communicate over with the stuff that we just went over a few minutes ago in building that magnetic brand story and strategy. That feeling. What colors can we use to help people feel safe, to feel confident, to feel heard, to feel fun, knowledgeable, empowered, happy, and motivated? How can we communicate that through color? The next one I mentioned was what images and objects represent your brand story. So these don't necessarily need to relate to your industry category, but they are things that represent your unique personality or the unique personality of your business and what you stand for. So I'll use myself as an example. I already gave you one, which is the compass. I have over here behind me, my original name of my online community was the Turtle Tribe. That's now changed, but this is it's a turtle logo. So I use a lot of imagery, like I put a little turtle emoji every time I sign off a social post. One of my signature keynote talks is called Rise Like a Phoenix, Race Like a Turtle. So I'm a big tortoise guy. I feel like the world is full of hares, but that the tortoise always comes out ahead and it knows exactly who it is and is going its own race at its own pace and isn't concerned about speed. So the turtle is something. I use maps and compasses and things like that with that name, No Schedule Man, which nobody can ever get Kevin Bulmer right. I think, Janice, you might have. Thank you for that. But I get called Bumler and Bloomer and all sorts of fun stuff. But people tend to seem to be able to remember No Schedule Man. And that phrase, to me, it represents a journey. I think about like an old sailing ship, like a tall ship, a pirate ship, that where you put your X on the map where you think your treasure is and you start moving toward it, but that it doesn't work as the crow flies. You're going to get blown sideways sometimes. So things that are like a journey and adventure and navigation and discovery. These are some of the words for the brand that I'm looking to build. So if you connect with me and you follow any of the things that I put out on social media, you'll see those sorts of images. What about for you? Do you have some, as a matter of fact, I gave a session last week for a group up near Ottawa, and there's a dynamic young woman who has started a company selling custom-made bras of sustainable material. So sustainability and inclusiveness and environment are very important to her. And those are some of the things that came up in this session, these exercises. Her logo was a turtle because she's very passionate about the environment and the idea of being around a long time and going at your own pace. So she, like me, was also using that imagery. Do any of you have any examples that you could share with us of things that aren't, oh, it looks like we got a few in the chat here. I'll share. Janice says our original logo was a ladybug. See, there's a great example. We made sure to incorporate a ladybug in our current logo. What does the ladybug represent, Janice, as it relates to your...
We grow the flowers on our farm, so we're a cut flower farm. So about having beneficial insects and all the different parts of nature in our farm.
Yeah, that's neat. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
These kinds of things, whatever they are, again, backing up, we're not worried about getting our message to everyone. We want to connect with a certain amount of the right people so that we can grow our businesses and ourselves at a sustainable pace. And sometimes, I just speak for myself, I feel afraid sometimes to share more personal pieces like that as a part of what we would consider business communication. But times aren't changing, they've changed. And some of the marketing speak and the advertising language that we used for so much of the 20th century, people are communicating in different ways now. And we found out, especially once the pandemic hit and the lockdown happened, we found out really quickly how important it is to have an online communication strategy and to have connected with people so that they'll miss us when we're gone. Otherwise, when you've got that disconnection, we found out how quickly that can all disappear. So I would encourage you to think through some of these things, whatever they might be, that relate to go back a couple of steps, what you stand for, how you want that brand to feel, what are those words, what are those ideas, what images and objects are unique to your business and your personality that represent those things. Keep the colors in mind and the fonts, the typefaces of what you use. I'll share the screen here again real quick to give you an idea. We'll go away from the outer space test for a second. So where it says key number 2, discovery, that's a font called Edo, E-D-O. And I've been using that recently because it's bold enough, it's all caps, and it's clear to read that to me it looks like it's got a certain sense of authority to it, but it's also casual enough that I'm hoping it helps communicate, well, this guy doesn't take himself so seriously that, I mean, he's not presenting, medical presentation slides, not that there's anything wrong with those, but that this is something that's a little bit more relaxed. The font that's underneath it that says, what is our unique brand story? That's a Google font called Railway, which is kind of in the Arial or Times New Roman family. That is just different enough that I think looks unique, but it's clear and it's just, hey, I'm just trying to get a point across. I use that. And in the No Schedule Man logo where it says No Schedule Man, that's a font I've been using for years called Dirty Ego, which to me looks like it's stamped on the side of a shipping crate, on one of those old ships or something like that. And I'm very consistent as much as I can with using those kinds of fonts in the same colors in my communication pieces. So the third key on this building our own magnetic identity and our magnetic, when it was in that bottle that I opened up earlier, the magnetic brand, is implementation. So the first one is understanding. What is a brand? It's a story. It's the context. The second one is discovery. What is our story? What do we want people to, what's the context that we want them to have when they encounter our business, when they hear our name, when they do business with us? What distinguishes us? How are we engineering what we would like that reaction to be? How can we be intentional about it? And then the third is the implementation. And this is where the turtle stuff comes in, because as opposed to it being something that we just sit down and decide once and for all, I would encourage you to think about this as a process. Or another way that I would say it is, think about it like, and marketing and advertising and social media, like seeds instead of lottery tickets. Like just constantly dropping seeds in the ground that may come up at some point, as opposed to just hoping that we're going to go viral or hit the payload, that all of a sudden our doors are going to burst open and we'll be taken care of forevermore. I used to encounter that a lot when I worked in the radio business and worked with a lot of businesses on their radio campaigns, is they give very little thought to what their message was, but they would want to buy airtime and they would want to buy a campaign, and they would think, well, if I buy a week or 2 weeks worth of radio ads, then everybody's going to flood into my business and all my problems are going to be over. But it doesn't really work like that. It's a process, especially when we're looking to implement something that we're intentional about. How do we then implement a process to build our unique brand story and strategy? I got to duck down here for a second because I just dropped my notes. Well, that's why message matters most. That's why we started with message. Every single message that we share, every single little instance of communication is an opportunity for us to build that story, to steer that ship toward that X on the map or follow that North Star that we've set out for ourselves. Ultimately, we can only control people's perspective and perception so much. But we're going to have much better opportunity at that and having it come out in a way that serves us well if we're intentional about it. So again, I know we're really motoring through a lot of information here, but it's usually around this time of a presentation where people ask, okay, well, this is great. You're telling us the message is important. And if you are on side with me about that, the question that usually comes next is, well, what do I say? What's the message? How do I get on that never-ending treadmill, especially of social media, and know what to say? Which is part of the reason I believe why we get so much of that language, like I mentioned at the start of our time together, that sounds and looks so similar to other advertisers, is because it can be difficult to keep coming up with things to say and to know how to continue to form that message over a long period of time. Just looking at the chat to see if any of you had anything you wanted me to stop and address. We're at about 2:45. How are we doing so far? Are you all still with me? I've got a bunch of tips that I was going to go over, and to answer that question, give you some ideas of what to say and how to craft some messages to fit this brand story and strategy that we're working on. We're doing all right? Want me to keep going? Okay. Thank you for the head nod.
This is great, Kevin. Thanks. Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Do you mind if I just take a brief sip of water and hydrate myself here in just a moment? Here's something I've started to do just recently, because I try to help people like you with this stuff, but it's like so many others. I don't know, sometimes it feels like it's easier to help other people than to actually do these things for ourselves. So I'm actively in the process of doing these kinds of things as well. And so when I have some clients through No Schedule Man Brand Media that I help them with their social media marketing, I'm almost better at putting stuff in place for them than I am for myself. I'm getting better at that. And one of the things that I've started to think even recently is to think about my social media in particular as a sort of virtual sales rep. And this is just a mindset thing here. And I think about, well, what does a really great sales rep do for a company? And I've been in sales. Some I've done well, some we don't really need to talk about, but it's been a journey. Well, really good sales reps, they stay in touch. They're consistent. They build relationships. They're helpful. They meet the customer's needs. They meet the customers and clients where they are, and they speak their language. They don't just show up only when they're asking for something. Really good sales reps, they know when to ask for something, and they ask for the business when the time is right. So I don't think I've said yet in this session, I'm not for a moment telling you not to do your call to action posts and campaigns. I'm asking you and encouraging you to enhance that by adding in some of this other conversation stuff as well to build that story. I feel like really good sales reps, they earn trust. There's another advertising cliche, a name you can trust, a trusted name since 19 whatever. Well, I'll decide whether I can trust you or not. And if you're telling me, I'll say it this way, somebody comes up to me on the street and tells me, hey, Kevin, you can trust me. I'm probably more likely to trust them less after they say that. So for me anyway, I feel like trust is earned. So are referrals, so are positive word of mouth. So when I think about investing my time into putting together what I'm going to communicate about myself and my business, I try to think of it like that, of being kind of like a good sales rep, continuing that conversation and building a relationship. So what can we mix in with all the call to action stuff? And now here's a really helpful page in the worksheet. There's just a blank list of empty lines. I will email you. This is the part where I'm going to go over some bullet points that I don't expect you to write these all down. I'll email them out, but if you want to follow along, by all means. The first one, a tip that I would use is ask a question. So say you want to put something on your Facebook business page or in an Instagram post, or I'm going to gear this more towards social media here in the next bit. Ask a question, bonus points if you ask an open-ended question. There are two reasons why. First of all, an open-ended question, as you probably already know, is a question that you can't just answer yes or no. It requires, in order for somebody to answer it, for that person to go a little bit deeper in their thought. So when we ask a question, if a post comes up in our feed and it's a question, if I even glance over that for a moment, a question is kind of a subconscious invitation, an inclusion, a sort of a, what do you think? Tell me what's important to you, as opposed to just a declaration of, hey, it's Cyber Tuesday now, I guess, 75% off all stock. If we ask a question and we mix that in once every week, a couple of weeks or so, it's just a subtle kind of an invitation. Whether somebody likes it or comments or shares, let's not fall into that trap of thinking that those are the only people who are paying attention. I've learned they're not. A lot of people, they see things, and even they scroll by, people tend to get an idea of who is consistent and who's not and what they're consistent with. Ask a question, and ask an open-ended question. So for instance, do you like chocolate ice cream? It's a question, so it's better than just saying, today only, buy one, get one free on chocolate ice cream. I'd maybe follow up with that. But do you like chocolate ice cream? No, I like vanilla. A better question would be, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream? Because now I've got to think about it a little bit. And now I'm thinking about me, but related to you and your business. I'm not saying that we're going to build that bond all with one post and one question. But if we're consistent about this over a period of time, it's amazing the effect that has. Another way to look at this of asking questions is to think about, if you ever tune into a radio station maybe in the morning and they do one of these call-in things with a listener, and they're maybe asking them trivia questions or playing a game with them or something like that, only that one person who calls in gets to actually play and maybe win the prize or whatever they're offering that day. But just about everyone who's in their car or brushing their teeth or in the kitchen and listening while they're hearing that is playing along in here. Or if you ever watch Family Feud or something like that, don't you try to think of the answers? Aren't you sort of playing along? That's one of the reasons why asking questions can be really valuable in the posts that you're sharing. And we also, if you're looking for what you want to ask questions about, go back to what we've already covered, about what you stand for, about the feelings, about the colors, about the objects. And you can even just turn things around and ask people what's important to them. So that's the first one. Ask a question. Number two, what do I say? What can I post? Try using imagination fueling phrases. What the heck does that mean? Imagination fueling phrase to me sounds less oily than the book that I originally read this in, which was called Hypnotic Marketing. That sounds a little nefarious to me. But the idea of it, where it teaches you copywriting skills on how to get people sort of emotionally invested in your message. So when I was doing the Hawaiian beach message in the bottle thing, I used one of these phrases where I said, wouldn't it be nice? So imagination fueling or hypnotic messages, if you like. Imagine if. Remember when? Wouldn't it be nice? And when you're saying, wouldn't it be nice? Now you can, or imagine, you can speak to some of the things that we talked about earlier of how you want people to feel. Wouldn't it be nice to feel more safe? Imagine having more confidence. Remember a time when you felt empowered to. I'm making these up off the top of my head. But try some of those where you are right off the top, you're trying to put people into a position of thinking about themselves as it relates to your message. Number three, why not lead with a testimonial? Here's an area where I don't practice what I preach as much. I like this quote. When a lion roars, it's not boasting, it's just being who it is. And I'm one of those ones who hesitates to share when people are kind enough to say nice things about me. And yet when I see that from other people, I take that as kind of a sign of authority and of pride and of a healthy thing. So if someone has given you a testimonial, or they've left a nice review on your Google page or on your Facebook, or they've sent you a nice email and you've asked for their permission to share that as a post, that's just the start of the post and the quotations. Here's what I love about this business. And then at the end of that, you thank them for those kind words and the opportunity to work with those kinds of customers, which is why you got in business, or whatever you want to say. So ask an open-ended question. That's 1. 2, use imagination fueling phrases. 3, lead with a testimonial. A 4th idea on what you can say is express an appreciation. Just because. A couple of reasons to do this. First, how do you feel when you let somebody know about how much you appreciate them? Feels good. And the second is to communicate that as part of who you are and what your business stands for is pretty cool. What if every once in a while you just shared something that was, I really appreciate so-and-so's business, or I bought, it could be related to a business. It could be related to somebody who did an act of kindness for you. It could be a friend. It could be you leave a recommendation for somebody on LinkedIn just because. Try it. Maybe even once a week or once a month, just make a note of, just do a post that just is an appreciation for somebody. And that's something that I feel like we don't see enough of, and that I don't do enough of. 5 is answer a question that you get from customers. Try to pay active attention to the kinds of questions that you normally get that you frankly are bored of because you deal with them every day. But if anybody is ever asking you one of those questions, or something that they message you or they email you, chances are other people have those kinds of questions as well. So go ahead and just address it and answer it right up front in the form of a post. Another one, so the 6th point here would be answer a question that you get about your business from a friend or family member who don't really understand what you do or why you do it. Or when you get together, say, like at the holidays, I'm sorry, we're not supposed to get together. When we used to get together, what are the kinds of things they ask you about what you're doing or why you do what you're doing? And then speak to that. And you could even write in the post, my sister wonders why I left my radio job and decided to go out and be a speaker. Well, and then give a sentence on why. That can be powerful. Another idea, number 7, we're on here now, is share something about your business or typical day that people might not know. And with this, I'm asking you to stare directly into what you might think is mundane because you do it every day. But the part, if we had more time, I would invest some time into helping us all look at that. When we're in small to mid-sized business, it feels like the entire world. It is our entire world because we've got so many responsibilities that we have to adhere to on a moment-to-moment basis. You already know this. And I had it in my past where I was the manager of a stock car racing track. Have any of you ever heard of Delaware Speedway? Couple of head nods. I used to manage that place. I won't tell you. It's a long story of how I went to radio, hosting a racing talk show, to announcing at a stock car track, to managing a stock car track. It overwhelmed me. I just wanted to be a radio announcer, and somehow I ended up at a stock car racetrack. But I lost sight of the fact that for a lot of people, that was like Disney World. All I saw were problems. We were always trying to repair the grandstands or broken equipment in the concession, holes in the racetrack that we had to patch with asphalt. Just all I saw were expenses. But the food delivery supplier, or the beer rep, or the Coke rep that would deliver that stuff, that was their favorite stop of the whole week. They, wow, a racetrack. Or even something just really day to day about, working from home or what it's like. Again, just to reset we're trying to relate to people. We're trying to look to share things that people can see themselves in that and connect on a deeper level. So it's not about proving ourselves so much with here's why we're great, here's why we're different. By all means, do that stuff, but mix in some just really everyday, mundane, day-to-day. Did you know that I can't even get started each day unless I have my turmeric tea with honey? I'm making that up. For me, it's coffee that's half decaf because I'm trying to cut back. Somebody might relate to that. Open-ended question. What do you prefer, iced tea or hot tea? Anyway, share something about your business or your typical day that people might not know. Bonus points if you take a picture of it and then you share that, like maybe on Instagram or on Facebook, like of your favorite mug or a photo that you have beside your desk, or you've got a little thing like I have here that says TGIF, thank God I'm fabulous, which I don't necessarily believe that, but this was a Dollarama thing that my son gave me for Christmas one year. So it's right behind the webcam that I'm talking to, which is right in front of a Margaritaville mug that I could take a picture of that it's holding all my pens and pencils. And anybody else who's a fan of Jimmy Buffett like I am would connect like that on a more magnetic basis. We're already at 3:00 here. I've got several more ideas here to pass along, but I want to be sensitive to the time. Would you like me to just keep going down the list? And anybody that's got to move along, you won't hurt my feelings. Take care of what you need to take care of. Have somebody interview you and record it. I hear myself saying a lot, because we know that video, and it doesn't necessarily have to be video. You could just use the voice recorder app on your phone, or use Google Docs, and you can put the transcription thing on there and just record yourself. You can come up with all kinds of stuff really quickly by doing that. As far as video is concerned, I hear myself saying a lot, if you can have conversation with another human being, you can create compelling, original, engaging video. You don't even have to look at the camera. I'll say more on that in just a couple of minutes. So that's number 8. Have someone interview you and record it, and you'll get some great ideas. I'm going to give you some questions that you could use for the interview. So number 9, here's a question. You can ask this for yourself, and you can ask this of your clients. What did you dream about doing when you were growing up? These next questions, by the way, if we were doing this session in person and we had set the time aside, I would have right at this point been asking one of you to join me at the front of the room, and I would make 5 videos for you right now. I do this at every in-person workshop that I can do. And what I do is I set a cell phone right beside my shoulder here at a head and shoulders shot pointed at the other person. And I have them look at me, not at the camera, and just have a conversation with me. And the answer to each of these questions is a video. So imagine, here's one of those phrases again. Imagine just the text coming up on the screen to start the video. What did you dream about doing when you were growing up? And then the video starts, and it's the person answering this question. And maybe it has their logo off in the corner and their business website. What we're doing is we're telling part of the story about who we are and what we stand for. We're sharing our personality. We're sharing something that might be magnetic to other people because they could see themselves in us, and they'll also think about maybe what that is for them. The last time I did this exercise, it was a woman came out of the group who I didn't even think was paying attention to me at all. But she just jumped right out at the chance to do this video exercise. And she and her husband own a construction company. And I asked her, what did you dream about doing when you were growing up? And her body language changed like that. And she talked about wanting to be a ballerina. You can hear it in my voice right now, and it made other people in the room emotional. You could feel people sort of leaning in. And I would stop and go, well, what just happened there? Well, she's telling a story. And that's interesting, and it's compelling. And it only needs to be 30, 60, 90 seconds long. So that's one question you can ask. We're on to point number 10 here. What's the story of how you became involved in your business? Chances are you can break that into a whole series of posts. Maybe you record yourself just remembering that. How did I start this? Why did I start this? Where did I get this idea? It might be fun for you to do that. Maybe set aside some time over the holidays and make a note of each little thing. You can make that into a series. Maybe every Monday you put another little thing out there. What are some of your favorite things about the work that you do? Why do you love it? As mundane and as cliche as you can possibly think, make it as brief as possible and come up with as many as you possibly can. What do you love about what you do? And the flip side of that, number 12, what are some of the most challenging aspects of what you do? Because there are challenges. What we show each other and ourselves online is like we've all got everything all figured out. We've all put it together. What I can share with you is that when I see the most engagement is when I am talking about things that I'm struggling with. And I think it's because people see themselves in that we compare ourselves to perfect, but we don't relate to perfect. What we relate to is real. But a lot of us are afraid to be real. That, by the way, is also, if you get a close-up look at the No Schedule Man logo, this one here with the compass, rather than north, south, east, west, it says REAL, being real, which is an acronym for something. Maybe another session, we can go over that sometime. What are some of the most challenging aspects of what you do? Make a list. Now, here's a fun one. Name a movie you've seen a dozen times or more, and why do you keep going back to it? So when I had the woman from the construction company, I would ask you if you could guess what she said, but you would never get it. I would never have gotten it. She said, Uncle Buck. Do you even remember that movie? Do you know what I'm talking about? You've seen that, Richard? It's a John Candy movie from what? The late 80s or early 90s, something like that. And again, she just lit up and she told a story about how she related to the teenage girl in that movie. Again, there's a real, an interesting question that everybody has an answer to that they might want to play along with. The 14th point I've got here is say less but more often. I've already alluded to that a little bit with some of the questions that I just gave you. If you turn on any radio station that has advertising, if we could listen to any of those 30-second ads together, almost every single one of them has too much stuff in it. Inventory overload. We could pull them apart, and I just love to help some of these companies understand. I'll give you an example. I was in Barrie for a speaking engagement a couple of years ago. And so I was listening to their radio stations on the way up there. This is something that we used to do in the radio business. We would call it monitoring, where we would listen for the commercials and then record them to see what businesses were advertising and what they were saying. And there was a trim and molding company that they sold trim, railing, and doors. And they had an ad that I recorded on my phone. And it was just packed full of stuff, all good stuff in of itself. But they talked about how they had just launched a new website, so check it out. We've got a new showroom, so come see our new showroom. Check it out. And we've got a new sign that's visible from the highway. So check that out. I just want to go, whoa, 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 whoa. Hang on a second. Each one of those things, you could pull those apart, and those could have been their own ads. If they were going to be a series of social posts, okay, so you've got a new website. Why? Why did you make a new website? What does the new website do that the old website didn't? What was it like trying to find a provider for a website? If you've ever started a website, you've been through these questions where you know, how did you pick the theme? What kind of feedback did you get in terms of what you wanted it to do that the other one didn't? On and on and on you could go just with that one point. Why I'm illustrating that is it's relatable to other people, especially other people in business. The showroom, you could ask the same questions. Why did you renovate it? What will people notice? What's the experience like now for customers that you felt like you were lacking before that you now can offer people? What will people notice that is new? How does it add to their experience? On and on and on that you could go, where you could pull a lot of points out of those ideas, say less, but more often, and make it more relatable, the way that we communicate with each other as humans. And the 15th one I have on here, I call Simon Sinek's Golden Circle. As you probably know, Simon Sinek wrote a famous book called Start With Why. And in the Golden Circle, if you can imagine 3 circles just getting bigger, each one out, he's got why in the middle, how the next one out, and what as the next one out. And his thesis is that most advertisers talk about what they do or what they sell. Some will even talk about how they do it, meaning how they're different or how they're better. But almost none of them talk about why they do what they do. So why do you do what you do? That's one of the reasons why I ask in the brand story stuff, what do you stand for? And with some of these questions, how did you get involved in the business that you're in? What are some of the ways that you want people to feel? Because now we're getting into values. The why of what you do might be entirely separate from something that sounds like it's immediately relatable to your industry. The woman I mentioned from the session I did last week, who has the custom made bra company, is just passionate about sustainability and individuality and environment. That's a big part of the why of what she does. I've started to put more of that at the front of my messaging, and I'm finding that people are responding to it more viscerally than just, hey, I'm a speaker and coach with 20 years experience in media sales and marketing. Well, yahoo, who cares? As opposed to if I say something like, I believe that every business and individual has a unique story worth celebrating and sharing. And that differentiation comes not by what we say, but who we uniquely are. We don't need to try to differentiate ourselves. We need to be ourselves. Or related to my speaking, I'll hear myself say, I believe that we all desire and deserve to live and work happy. I'm still trying to dive into this more, but that's part of the why of what I'm doing. So what is it for you to try to go from the inside out, the why you do what you do, maybe what makes the way that you do it a little bit differently, and the what you do. If you ever pick up that book, Start With Why, there's a great example in there about Apple, which I used earlier as an example with the logos. And now I'm using a big business as an example here, but they did a really nice job of marketing with the why, about thinking differently and being cutting edge and being revolutionary. And so what they succeeded with is not pinning themselves down into a certain product category. A great example that I think is powerful, that I think of sometimes, is if you can remember when what we now know as iPods and MP3 players came along. Now that's just, we use our phones for that kind of stuff. But when all that came along and Apple was getting into the market, there was another company called Creative, which is still around, I guess. And Sinek argues that they were probably even a better position. And in fact, they beat Apple to the market by almost 2 years with their MP3 player, but they marketed the MP3 player as a 5 gig MP3 player. So this would have been what, sometime in the first decade of the 2000s? A 5 gig MP3 player. Whereas Apple marketed their iPod as 1,000 songs in your pocket. So which one has more feeling, has more imagination, has more imagery? That's brilliant. It's so simple, but it's elusive to try to get to it. So I would encourage you to think about that one as well, about why people engage with your business, your product, your service. What's the equivalent for you of Apple's 1,000 songs in your pocket with the MP3 player? What also is the equivalent of going, if I say, well, I'm a certified life and executive coach and keynote speaker with 20 years experience. That's kind of like saying, I can offer you a 5 gig MP3 player. It might sound like it's something, but how does it really relate to me? Think about these kinds of things. And so there's some tips. I think that if you go over even a handful of the things on the list that we just mentioned, and again, I'm happy to email these out. I will put my email address, by the way, in the chat. If any of you would like me to email you notes on this individually, just send me a note. Janice, I'm not sure if I send stuff to you, if you're able to access everybody who has been on the session.
I believe I am, Kevin. Yes, I've taken down everybody's name.
I'm certainly happy to do that. I had a couple other things that I wanted to share with you about how you can create a whole bunch of different kinds of content in a short amount of time and to make it work for you. And a couple of the tools that I use, but I'm well over the allotted time that we had of 2 to 3. So I could probably do that in another 5-10 minutes, but you tell me, do you want me to cover some of that?
How does everybody feel? Everybody's on mute.
Nobody wants to go out and shovel snowbanks.
Yeah, exactly. If we can wrap it up by 3:30 with everything, Kevin, then I say I'm with you.
Well, I'll do a really high level quick overview. I already feel like I've pointed a fire hose squarely at your mouths. Not a very neighborly thing to do. and it's a tough choice. Shovel snow or listen to Kevin flap his gums for another 10 or 15 minutes. It's not as obvious a choice as it might seem. I'm happy to come back and do other sessions. And in fact, to create some videos, we could even do this with Zoom. If I recorded the screen and I could make some videos for you, but maybe getting into 2021, who knows? If you've got an appetite for that, I'm happy to come back and break some of this down. But as an example, I had done a podcast interview with somebody who is the owner of an executive management consulting company. And so we were just having a conversation. I didn't have any intention other than to just do an interview with her. But when she listened back to it, she said, I really liked a lot of what I shared. You got some good information out of me. Do you think you might be able to make some videos out of that conversation that I could use on my LinkedIn page? I said, well, not only could I make videos, but I could make a lot of other stuff as well. So even when we weren't intending to create content for social media, out of that one-hour conversation, I was able to chop that up and create for her 14 different short videos, 21 what I call image quote slides. So, when you see maybe on Instagram an image with a quote, but it's quoted, her words and in her own, like what she said in her own words and with her own business in it, and 13 what I call text-based posts. And this is easy to do. Anyone could do it. I already mentioned that if you could have a conversation with somebody, you can come up with interesting content. If you're going to put yourself on video, think about if you've ever seen a documentary movie. When people speak on a documentary, they're not looking right at the camera. I mean, they could sometimes, but more often than not, they're looking at the person that's interviewing them. So they're sharing about themselves, but they're talking kind of like this. And it's a very natural and normal thing for viewers to watch. So the process is really simply have a conversation. You can even fake like you're answering somebody else's questions. I might know somebody who's done that before. Or you could sit down with a friend or a family member, use some of the questions that I already gave you, or you could just record it as audio as well. But this works especially well with video. Each answer that you give is its own video because we're sharing unique parts of our personality, our values. This is story-based stuff that, again, we're looking to enhance the call to action stuff that we're constantly putting out there. So if you shoot a bunch of video, let's say you get asked 5 or 6 questions, you answer them all, you should be able to get, even if you flub some of them up, 4 or 5 little short videos out of that. And again, in another session, I could show you easily how you could do this even without an app, to just splice those on your phone. You don't need lights and an expensive camera. If you have a smartphone, you're ready to go. If you want to use an app, I use one called Viva Video. I'll put the link for it in here in a bit. I don't have any affiliation with them. I just have found it's really handy. Filmora Go is another one. But if you go into the App Store or iTunes, you'd be able to find all kinds of probably even free video editing apps on your phone. So you can chop those up. So right off the bat, you've got a handful of videos. Those you can either upload into something like Facebook and pre-schedule them to go out. Let's say you want a new video to go out every Tuesday. You shoot 4 of them and you just pre-schedule them to go 1 a week for the next little bit. Or you could use a social media management tool. I'll mention more about that in the one that I use in a moment. But then what's really neat is if you take that video or the audio file and you have it transcribed, you can use a service like temi.com. I'll put it in the chat. Again, I don't have any affiliation. I've just used it several times. I think they transcribe the audio, or like even you could upload the video, the raw video, or a YouTube address. I think it's 10 cents per minute of audio or video, meaning that like an hour, if I wanted to have the transcription of an hour-long podcast, it would be $6. Now, there are going to be mistakes in it. I'm going to have to go back and edit it and clean it up. But at some point in the new year, you'll see me start to release ebooks with interviews that were based on podcast interviews that have just been transcribed that I can group together. And now I've got more content. But why you might want to use this with the process I'm sharing with you is now you can get your own words back to you, but in text format. So let's say you say something that's quotable about your business. sometimes sitting down and trying to go through these exercises makes you feel like you're on the spot when I'm firing questions at you or someone else is. But when you're just having a conversation with someone and you feel more relaxed, it's amazing what will come out of you. And if you record it, sometimes you go, wow, I like that. What did I say there? That's why you want to have the transcription. But the same thing that was a video could also be a blog post. It could be a 2 or 3 line text-based post. Not everything that we put out on LinkedIn or Facebook or something like that has to be a video or a photo. Maybe there are 2 or 3 lines that you said that you could use in text, or you pick a phrase out of that you think is a neat quote and you want to come up with a slide to put on your Instagram page or something like that. So just out of that one conversation, suddenly you give yourself the opportunity to have videos, blogs, social posts, like text-based social posts, some of those quote slides. And depending on how far you want to go, if you've got the audio, you could always put the audio feed up somewhere like on SoundCloud or something if you ever wanted to do your own podcast. But now we're getting well out there. Here's one of the best parts about doing something like this is just as a discovery to kind of aggregate a bunch of content that you can then send out, is that it's evergreen, meaning it doesn't go bad. That's one of the reasons why I do the podcast interviews, because they're just story-based, they're conversations. So you could listen to one of those episodes now that was recorded 3 years ago, and it's just as relevant now if the subject matter is of interest to you, as opposed to we just came through a bunch of Black Friday sales where any of the communication that was directly geared toward a call to action or an offer for that is only good up until that point, and then we can't really use it again. But if you make a video talking about why, what the story was of why you got into the business that you got into, you could share that as many times as you want. Your only challenge is going to be setting aside the time to go and schedule it in to go out again. And I'm not talking about a high-tech process. I'll show you. Here's my week right here. I just created a little sheet. It's got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and it's got different times. And I sit down maybe once a quarter and I just plan out what I'm going to put out on my social media feeds. And then I pre-schedule as much of it as I can. Now I say I pre-schedule it. Are you familiar with a social media management tool? Do you know what that is?
No.
Richard, you're nodding your head. If you Google that, social media management, there are software tools that allow you to pre-schedule content to be published to your social media pages at a time in the future. Facebook will allow you to do this within its platform if you use a business page or a group. It doesn't allow you to do this with a personal profile. And I don't believe LinkedIn allows you to do this as well. But I use one called Buffer. Again, I don't have any affiliation. I pay for it. I think I pay $10 a month. I just put a link to it in there. But I have 2 or 3 different LinkedIn profiles, my online private Facebook group, my Facebook page, a whole bunch where I've already pre-scheduled posts to go out until the end of January. The magic of that is that if you can force yourself to invest the time to even go over a few of the tips that I gave you in our sessions today, maybe set aside a half day or so when we get in between Christmas and New Year's and just come up with some stuff. Whether you use a tool like Buffer or Hootsuite is another one, or MeetEdgar is another one, or even if you just use something like Facebook, if you have a Facebook page for your business, and you go in to make a post, and then whatever it says, the button, whether it's publish or something like that, you'll see, I think there's a little calendar looking icon there. If you click that, it will allow you to schedule that to go out at a time of your choosing. So, I've got programmed on my Facebook page and my LinkedIn page for an episode of the podcast to go out every day at, I think, either noon or 1 o'clock. So I just pre-scheduled, I want a post to go out at that time. And then I just fired the podcast episodes in there. But when I got to Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, rather than posting podcast episodes, I've already got pre-programmed in there like Merry Christmas messages. So you could theoretically, depending on what plan you have, you could pre-schedule a Happy Mother's Day message and have that set to go out next May. I don't know what day that's going to be. But without getting too ridiculous about it, what that allows you to do is to pre-schedule some of this content to publish while you're off living your life and running your business. And one of the reasons why I'm so bullish about video, if you can get to that at some point in the next year, if you're not using video already, is that it more than anything else has the opportunity to work for you because it is you. And it's amazing to me how people feel like they know us even if they haven't met us. And it's such a powerful way to represent what we do. And so if we can batch together, or what I call kind of quantum create a bunch of content, but then have the discipline to portion it out over a period of time, that's where we can get the consistency from if you use something like a social media management tool. Just to wrap up here, one of the other things I use a lot is called Canva. It is a graphic design tool. Anybody else familiar with Canva? You ever used it?
Yes, we use it.
Awesome. Do you like it?
Yes.
I don't know how I would ever manage without it. I don't know how I ever did something without it. Whoops, I just put the Canva link in there. That, full disclosure, is an affiliate link, meaning if somebody clicks that link and buys the service that they pay me a commission. That's something else I'd love to do a whole separate session on, is how to create passive income through your business with related products and services. But I don't represent anything that I don't use and don't believe in. You can just go to canva.com to bypass any affiliate stuff. But it's basically, as you'll know, if you're one of those who said that you use it, it's basically like a plug and play graphic design tool. And anything that would be printed, whether it's virtually, digitally, or printed like in signs, there are templates for it in there. So when I've talked about creating maybe quote slides for Instagram or Facebook, or immediately resizing something that you want a thumbnail for a YouTube video, or you want the banner, the right banner size for your LinkedIn business page or your Facebook header. I don't know why they can't get together and make all these things standard sizes, but of course they don't. Or if you want to design a new business card, or a stand-up banner for a trade show display, if we can ever do trade show displays again, or brochures, or anything, signs, anything. I've designed all of that stuff myself in Canva, just using their templates. I think it's a really, really great tool. I mentioned I would give you the link to that Viva video.
Kevin,
yeah.
This is Janice. I'm not sure if it's just me and there's something going on that I'm not accessing, but I am not seeing the links that you're leaving in the chat. Is everybody else seeing those?
No.
Oh, I'm putting these all just to Richard. How did I do that? You getting all these, Richard? Would you excuse me and Richard, please? We're having a private conversation in the chat.
So what I can,
I didn't mean to single you out.
because I was going to say what I can do also is I can send them out an email to everybody as well.
We could do that for sure. I somehow clicked the I talked about the difference between being perfect and being real. I think there's a little drop down thing that I clicked that's just there, try now. I somehow
There we
clicked
go. I see the Canva link.
Richard, did you feel like I was targeting you, or did you even notice? Like, what's this guy picking on me for? He's just firing everything to me. I'll put buffer in here as well. Does that mean you're the only one who got my email address too, Richard? Buffer.com. No schedule.
So I'll take the opportunity here to let people know that they can work with you one-on-one. That I know that you do that with individuals and businesses. I've seen some of the testimonials on your website about the great work. I have checked out the podcast series, which is Journeys with the No Schedule Man, Heart-Centered Entrepreneurship podcast. So I've seen some of those interviews myself. So again, I would encourage people to check out the podcast, check out your website. I mean, there's so much more of what you do. Some of you have other presentations that go deeper into that, dive into some of these things. So I'll turn it back over to you, Kevin. But while you were doing that, I just wanted to review some of those things.
Just to wrap up, thank you for sharing some of that. I've actually prepared just a couple slides to speak to that. Somebody mentioned in the chat earlier, here we go. What is the podcast? Thank you for mentioning it, Janice. There it is. It's called Journeys with the No Schedule Man. We've got tonight we'll be doing our 115th episode. It's 100% free. You can follow it on most major podcast platforms, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. It's on YouTube, or you can find the complete archive on my website at noscheduleman.com. There's some really terrific stories there from just a wide array of business people and people who are entrepreneurial or creative. Some from other parts of the world. One of my favorite ones was talking to David Cicerelli, who built voices.com, which is, as you probably know, here in London. And to hear the story about how he got this idea and went from himself, just him, to a global business and brand is really neat. I feel like that's very valuable, not because of me, but because of the people who have shared their stories on that. So there's a lot of information available to you completely free. That's the podcast. I've got a book. It's really more of an ebook, but there's a copy of it here. So I do have some paperback copies, and it's available on Amazon. It's called Stop Your Marketing Message Sucks. Here's what to do about it in 3, 2, 1, go. 3 things to stop doing, 2 things to start, 1 magic measurement, and the 1 thing that has to go for any of that to work. I can put the Amazon link in the chat in a moment, but that's a really quick read. It's about 40 pages. And if you resonated with any of the stuff today, you'll probably get a kick out of that. I do have an online membership service, which is a coaching community that we call My Real Success Pass. And then there's an online social component that we call the Turtle Crew. I showed you that logo earlier. This is something that allows me to interact with people on basically a daily basis. What happens in My Real Success Pass is I do regular live video trainings and topics related to all of the things that we talked about today and a whole bunch of other things besides on strategic marketing. There's a sort of a life coaching and a personal growth, a heavy component of that in there as well. I often do live interactive sessions that are just collaborative, designed for anybody who's working on something. Then they just want another opinion. They just want to collaborate on it, or they want to network with other members and things of that nature. We've got hours and hours and hours. I think we've got over 60 different videos now that are different coaching sessions that are available on demand, as well as expert interviews. Sometimes I'll go and get somebody who is proficient in the subject that I don't know as well and open it up to do a member Q&A. We'll sometimes do group mastermind calls. I'm in there pretty much on a daily basis, just trying to keep the conversation going and get people working with each other, or they just want to have access to me. So I wanted to make sure that I let you know that was available, because it's a way for people to get some support and to have some other voices that they can access, but in a way that's convenient for them and without locking themselves into a whole coaching program. Membership for My Real Success Pass and the social community, which is a private Facebook community that's only for people who are members there, I sell for $29 a month or $232 for the year. What I want to offer you today, since you've invested in yourself to come to this session, and it's clear that you're working on your business and that you're being proactive, is I've set up a private link just for you, for the Elgin Business Resource Center and those who joined us today, that if you're interested in looking into that service, I'm offering today that you can get a year's membership into that and continue the conversation and have access to me to help you work with all of this stuff for the price of a month. Wow. So for $29, you could have a year's access to everything that we've got in there, and you'd have access to me and the other people that we've got in the community. It's not a huge group. We've only just got a little bit more than 100 people, but it's about having the right people, what I call heart-centered entrepreneurs, to interact and grow and collaborate with. So I've got 2 different options as far as that's concerned. One is $29. We'll give you a year's membership. The other is $39. We'll give you a year's membership plus a signed mailed copy of this book that I just mentioned. And I'm going to share that link with you in just a second, because that offer is available until midnight tonight. And then after that, you're always welcome to come back to it, or you can go to myrealsuccess.ca. But that link is timed. That offer is timed until midnight tonight. $29 for a year. And I think there's a $2 or $3 processing fee for the service that I use. And if you ever want to talk to me one-on-one, I charge $45 a call, usually about an hour. I don't lock people into long programs. Also, if you're a member of My Real Success Pass, I take 15% off that call. We just do call by call type basis. And if you'd rather work on something one-on-one rather than being a part of a community, or in addition to, just so you know, that's kind of where I leave things. And I would love to stay connected with you. If you can remember my name or the phrase "no schedule man" and you have access to the internet, I am frighteningly easy to find, but all part of me trying to put together what I've been sharing with you here. I'm just at No Schedule Man on just about any of the social media platforms, and would love to connect with you. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. I'm going to give you that link for that offer for the online community. And if you're interested in coaching or anything like that, just reach out to me either through Janice or Rebecca, or send me a note, or go through my website.
So thank you for that, Kevin. That's very generous.
Mm-hmm. You're more than welcome.
Much. And thank you for your, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the link there is now in the chat. I think I sent it to everyone as opposed to just you, Richard. Wait a second, Richard. I'll just send this to you here. No, I'm just kidding. There's a video on that page of about 4 minutes long that goes over more in detail what that service is. And you'll see some of the people who are in that community with what they've had to say about it. If you're interested enough to invest 4 minutes into watching that video, I think that'll give you a really clear indication of whether you feel that that's a fit for you or not. And only go forward, regardless of whether it's a deal or not. Only please go forward if you're convinced and you feel that it's a fit. But thank you very much for your kind attention. I know I've thrown a lot at you. Aside from any of that stuff, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn or any of the other socials, and you just want to fire me a question, I'm open to that anytime. You know, we've got to look out for each other now more than ever to get ourselves through these challenging times. And I really admire that you've invested in yourself, and I'm humbled that you're still here listening to me. So Janice, thank you for the invitation. And if you ever want me to explore any of the other stuff in more detail, I would love to engage with you again in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that kind offer. And thank you so much for all the information. You really did leave us with a lot. Not only a fresh perspective. Seems like there's so much information out there telling us what to do with marketing for businesses. We see it all the time. You're telling us, which I thought was really cool, is to look within, look at what we have to put out there. So I think it gives people more confidence, and it takes the focus off what everybody else is doing and onto what are my values and what am I putting out there. So putting us more in line with our own beliefs, and then putting that out there. So I think there's a whole lot of value in there. The tips that you've given, practical tips, I mean, that is, everybody loves leaving with tips because it's something in hand that they can take away and start that practice right away. So thank you very much for everything. For those of you that are still on, if you liked the session, please drop a thumbs up, a comment on Kevin's site, and visit his website. And yeah, look for us in the new year. We hope to have you back. So thank you very much for everyone for sharing your time with us this afternoon. I hope you found it as helpful as we did. And we look forward to seeing you next time.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the kind words. Richard, I just saw your note. It looks like No Schedule Man is spelled incorrectly. I spelled it incorrectly. I'll just put this in here before. And Janice, I can send you the list of everything that I mentioned if you have the opportunity to send that out to follow up with people, like that whole list of tips and whatever else.
We will do that. We'll make sure everyone gets it.
I can send that to you. Yeah, for anybody that I did not type my email address in there correctly. It's Kevin@NoScheduleMan. I think I need to buy a vowel because I'm missing an E in there. But thank you very much. Reach out anytime, and hopefully we'll see each other again. But take care of yourself and stay safe.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks for being with us.
Take care. Thanks.
Thank you.